Science surrounds us in classrooms, on the streets, and even in our skies.
Makes a scientist dream big in a country where science isn't always in the spotlight.
Meet Dr. Ernest, a physicist and space scientist at the Philippine Space Agency. His journey began with fascination for the sky and grew into a mission to understand how space weather affects everyday life on Earth.
We have sets of questions for you, Doc. So, can you tell us what first sparked your interest in science? Was there a person, place, or event that started your passion for science, sir?
So basically, I think as a kid, I was a very curious kid. So I always ask questions whenever I see things. I always try to observe my surroundings, what happens to this. I also helped me realize that I was meant for science whenever, let's say, I see the sky. So I try to be curious. For example, when I see clouds, I try to, imagine things like clouds forming certain objects. When I was, let's say, I'm going back from school, going home. Yung mga ganun bagay, I always look at the sky, stars, and try to, try to draw the dots between stars and try to do. Then I just learned that those are called constellations. Mga ganun bagay. So I always look at the moon. So basically, astronomy and sparked my curiosity to design.
For Dr. Ernest, it all began by looking up and asking why.
Currently working on, Dr. Ernest, how does your research or work impact everyday life or health in the Filipino community?
Okay, so currently I am the Chief Research Science Specialist of the Interdisciplinary Space Missions Development Division. And so basically what we do there is we use different sciences to study certain space-related phenomena. For example, we know that we have this dream of going to Mars. So that means when we set up a colony in Mars, we have to grow our own food. So in our division, we are starting to do some experiments on how plants grow in certain simulated environments, like under the influence of very tiny gravity, we call that microgravity. So we check what's the optimum plant growth under those circumstances. And we're trying to start an experiment on how plants grow in Martian soil. We have samples of Martian soil, and we try to mix it. We will try to mix it with different materials, organic materials that we can find on Earth, and then we try to mix them up and try to do what mixture would be best suited to grow certain plants. Okay, kumakain ka ba ng munggo?
Opo.
Yes. So, munggo is one of our sample plants. Yeah, so we have an experiment on that. So we also try to subject those mungo plants, mungo seeds, in hypergravity. So that means you have to increase gravity. So hypergravity usually happens when a rocket goes to space. So you need to have a large acceleration. So that means you have to put in a lot of force so that the rocket can go and overcome gravity. So during the time when the rocket is going up to space, if you bring seeds, those seeds undergo hypergravity conditions. So that's what we do in our lab.
From navigation to disaster readiness, His work makes science part of daily life.
What challenges or limitations have you encountered in your work? Have you already overcome them or are you still addressing them?
Okay, so one of the challenges, for example, in our experiment is that because the Philippine Space Agency is a young agency, so we do not have a lot of equipment to do our experiments with. So we try to set up our labs. Our lab is so small that I think it's smaller than your bedroom.
What?
Yeah, so we try to cram up our experiments there. So we try to develop smaller equipment. So we develop a random position machine that can simulate. One of the limitations there is that number one, we need a lot of space. So we have small space right now. But in the future, Philippine Space Agency will move to a bigger campus in Tarlac City, in the Tarlac province. And then if we're going to go there, we will be able to build bigger units. So that's a major limitations that we currently have. But in spite of that limitation, we can still do some things.
Although it's on a micro scale.
Yeah, it's a small scale, but we try to start things, no?
Yung mga satellites po natin, yung space is nag-function sila as eyes in the sky. Ito ang natawag natin na space value chain. So ito po yung strategy ng PhilSat para generate ng socio-economic value mula sa mga bagay sa kalawakan.
Filipino scientists work with less but achieve more. Their resilience inspires, yet it also calls for stronger support systems.
What do you consider your most significant contribution or achievement? Why do you consider it meaningful?
For him, achievement isn't a medal. It's passing knowledge on and seeing science serve people. When asked about legacy he wants to leave, Dr. Ernest's message was clear. Science isn't just for geniuses in lab coats. It's for anyone curious and brave enough to ask questions. His hope is that his work opens doors for the next generation of Filipino scientists. Legacy is not about recognition. It's about sparking curiosity in others. He reflected on what makes Filipino science unique. Resourceful, creative, determined, but he also stressed the needs for better facilities, more support, and opportunities for students. The future is bright, but it requires commitment. It is a reminder that science and society must grow together. Science is not just history, it's our story as a nation. The Philippines needs your ideas. Be curious, be brave, be you, because the next discovery could start with you.